Hello, good morning and welcome. It's the 29th of October and it is just after 6 o'clock. We'll start as ever. It's the Commitment of Traders Report review. We'll start as ever with the Australian dollar. And as you can see, we have the commercials at an extreme here. Can I just say, if you haven't watched it, can you go back and watch last week's video where I put arrows on just to indicate clearly the positions and the movement in the Commitment of Traders report. But we have an extreme here a few weeks ago. We've come off the extreme. The price of the Australian dollar has fallen quite sharply for the Australian dollar, and we're expecting that to continue through. And we'll just have a quick look at the chart. Here we have the Australian dollar, US dollar. You can see I also use, with the Commitment of Traders, I use a trend line on the RSI to give me my entry points. And if you look back through the history of my videos, you can see how accurate these have actually worked out. So anyway, back to we've got the commercial short ratio of 6.15 to 1 and a speculator's long ratio of a 3 to 1. I've also been reading in the press how the speculators are getting a less bearish of the US dollar. So that's going to help us. It's actually the mindset of how they're feeling. And you can see this reflected somewhat in the RSI as it's gone more or less to the 30.9 on the chart. British pound. You can see the British pound has come off the highs. I'm expecting this to continue down a little bit more. I know the commercials have sold off and they're back down to the zero. I'm expecting them to move over and go a little bit to the bullish side. And as this falls, and I'm expecting it to fall maybe to recent lows at the 128. So we'll just have a quick look at the chart. Again, note the trend lines on the RSI. We have a commercial short ratio of 2.06 to 1 and a speculator's long ratio of 1.02 to 1. As I said, we've had a little bit of sideways movement over the last couple of weeks, but I'm expecting this to sell off a little bit more. maybe down to the 128, but definitely I would have thought the 129. There we go. Canadian dollar. We have an we've got the Canadian dollar was way overpriced. It was up around the 83 mark. It started to fall back down. The commercials are exceedingly bearish. This is a really bearish stance that they've got. They've started to pull off the highs. The speculators are still fairly confident of a rally. I see more weakness in the Canadian dollar, and we'll go and have a look at the chart. I see further highs for this. I'm back to about my entry position, which I didn't realize how far the Canadian dollar was going to go short. Sorry, the strength in the Canadian dollar. But anyway, I'm back up to about my entry position. The commercials ratio of 3.67 to 1, short the Canadian dollar, long the US. So sorry, long the pair. So this pair I see more upside. They're above the 69.1. We had a little bit of a pullback on Friday, but as long as it remains above the 69.1, I'm bullish for this pair. Euro, We've seen a little bit of a decline in the price of the euro. They've got lots of trouble, what with Catalonia and a couple of regions in Italy that want to do the same sort of thing. And of course, they still got the problem with Greece. They have a bubble on the stocks and shares market, the DAX, you name it, it's overbought. And it's going to be a bit of a blow when it all comes tumbling down. I see a lot of downside for the euro. The commercials are at a bearish extreme for about 5 years. And if we have a look at the chart, we saw a couple of nice candles. That's the Thursday candle and the Friday candle, and I'm expecting even more weakness in this. You might see a little bit of a pullback, but I can't see anything to be happy about with this pair. So we have a commercial short ratio of 1.64 to 1, but bearing in mind they've been long for the last 5 years. Rule of thumb, that is quite an extreme position that they've taken. Japanese yen. Well, the commercials have taken an even more bullish stance of the yen. So this is for the year. This is about as high as they've ever been, about as bullish as they've ever been. If I just put a 3-year chart up, it's been a long while since they've been this bullish. And sort of if we go back to this position here, where you've got an extreme between the speculators and the commercials, and you can see the upside that we got from this, and then you get an extreme over here and over here, and you get this big fall off, crossover. Now I'm expecting the price of the yen to rise. So we'll have a quick look at the chart. USD, Japanese yen. We've had this long period of weakness in the yen. Whoops, daisies. Go back. And now I'm expecting strength in the yen. So I'm expecting the US dollar, Japanese yen to start to come down. We've got a commercials long ratio of 4.4 to 1. We're just about to cross my trend line, the famous trend line, and I've got my trade in at the top here. So we'll see how that goes for me. Yeah. Swiss franc. The commercials have really upped their bullish stance for the Swiss franc. And I don't think the speculators have been quite so enthusiastic. So that's very interesting to see. I haven't got that chart up at the moment. I really only do the Swiss franc on crosses. The USD index, it's still basically where it was for the last 10 weeks. The commercials are basically as bullish the US dollar as they have been for a long time. So I think it's 4 years, something like that. Mexican peso, which I still have a trade on and I've done quite well with. As you can see, they had this extreme diversion position, and the Mexican peso has fallen quite hard. I really think there's still a lot more to go in this, so I'm hanging on to my trade, and yeah, I think that's going to go quite well. New Zealand dollar, we've seen this has come off the extreme and now we've come down to the 0 line, but I still think there's more downside for this. Might see a little bit of a pullback, but I feel there's more downside to it. We'll just go and have a look at the chart. New Zealand dollar, US dollar. You can see how steeply it's fallen. Might get a little bit of a pullback, but it won't be much, I don't think. We're below the 30.9. As long as it holds below the 30.9, it's going to continue on down. You can see where I put my trend line in. That's the first time I've done it on the New Zealand dollar, but that's just fallen off nicely. Uh, all the crosses that come this low on the RSI are fairly weak, and I didn't take that trade. This one up here would have been a lot better, obviously, but you know, hindsight and everything. Silver, energies, crude oil. The commercials have gone bearish again. I'm amazed. It's up at 54. I think I'm going to take another trade short in this. It is, you know, the commercials are quite bearish. I got knocked out around 52, so in fact it's done me a favour. I think there's downside coming. I'm going to be cautious. I'll look for my trend lines on my RSI, and we'll have a little trade on that next week. Grains, metals, silver. Silver, the commercials are a little bit more bearish. I see more downside. Even as silver has gone down, the commercials have increased their bearish stance. So I really do see more downside for silver. I have heard people talking about it, you know, how silver's going to rally, but I really can't see it. We'll see where that goes. Stock indexes, I'll just quickly run through these. S&P 500. I mean, we've seen a rally in the price of the S&P 500 on Friday. So I think next week's commercials will be a bit more interesting. But, you know, that they are getting fairly bearish of this pair. So we'll see how that goes. Nasdaq, again, they are actually taking a fairly bullish stance on that. The Dow Jones, they are bearish for the Dow Jones. They have been a little bit more bearish a few weeks back, but Russell 2000, yeah, they were bullish, and we had this big upturn in the market, and they just sold all their positions, took good profit, and they're basically at even Stevens at the moment. Right, so that completes it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. But if you haven't watched it, please watch last week's, because I put the arrows on it, and you know, it does help explain it if you're new to the commitment of traders.